97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with 97.3 ESPN.com's Andrew DiCecco. Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.
You know, we recognize the ability of the roster that's put together right now. And I think we have the ability to do something really special with this group, but it's going to take a lot of hard work.
Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia studios, it's Football at 4.
All right, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast and brought to you by PlaySugarHouse.com. Sign up now. They'll match your first deposit up to $250. Got the Bills plus 5.5 at home tonight. Over under 55 on that one. And then, of course, the Cowboys and Cardinals. We'll have both games for you here on 97.3 ESPN. 5:30, we'll pick up the Chiefs and Bills, and then we'll take you out to Dallas for the Cowboys and the Cards. Let's get reaction from Andrew DiCecco. Football at 4 on that Eagles loss yesterday. Encouraging, discouraging. How do we feel after that one? Send us your text, 609-403-0973. And Andrew, let's get an overview right off the bat here. I mean, it's an ugly first half. They don't seem like they have any inspiration, and then somehow they're within a 2-point conversion to sending that game potentially to overtime. So do we watch that game and feel better about this team, or do we feel like, man, that's a bad football team?
Well, there wasn't much hope for the Eagles through one quarter, and then late in the second quarter, you saw them insert Jalen Hurts and create some sort of a spark on offense that really hasn't been there for the past couple of weeks, and that kind of galvanized the offense. And going into the second half, you saw a vastly different Eagles offense, and they were more aggressive, and they started to find their footing. And it was just an absolutely gallant effort from Carson Wentz, who, you want to talk about a tough player, just hanging in there, taking hit after hit. I believe he was hit 16 times. Just keep coming after it and hanging in the pocket and throwing the football, knowing he was going to get hit and put on his back. He was working with a makeshift offensive line. He really just found a way to make it happen, and the team resembled the teams of the past couple of seasons where they banded together and they tried to find a way to fight till the very end. And they took a perennial AFC Titan to the brink. So that was definitely encouraging to see.
Okay, I'm going to get your thoughts on Wentz then, because if you just go off the numbers were not good. He was 50%, 21 of 40, 213, no picks today or yesterday. He did throw the 2 touchdowns. I mean, it was a gritty, gutty performance, but overall, was it 21 of 40? If I just showed you that, you would say 50%, not good. So what did you think of Wentz's game?
Well, yeah, sure. If you go by the box score, he had a very, subpar game. But when you look at the game and you take into account all the different variables that he was up against, and the patchwork offensive line, and just the lack of weaponry that he had to work with, and a lot of quarterbacks would not have finished that game. I can tell you that right now. Carson Wentz hung in there, took hit after hit, like I was saying, and got a lot of different weapons involved. He went back to John Hightower late in the game, got the 50-yard bomb. He's starting to establish a rapport with a lot of his younger weapons, which is, Travis Fulgham. Him and Travis Fulgham have connected for, I believe, 16 receptions over the past 2 weeks. It's encouraging to see from Carson, and that's the sign of a good quarterback and a tremendous leader, someone who's going to elevate the play of those around him. And, when the game really was hanging in the balance there in the end, that's when Carson really came to play. And, they fell within, 2 points of taking that game in overtime.
I like that you brought up Hightower. Last week, I mentioned to you the not getting out of bounds and then missing the play at the back of the end zone for a touchdown. In this game, you're talking 3rd and 22. I just thought that was such a key play. Whether they score or not, it could flip the field and then give the Ravens such a longer distance because they instantly scored right from there. So, I look at that play and I think he does consistently get open, and I know you are limited, so he's going to be out there. But those are the type of plays that he has to make. I know he made up for it and made one later in the game, but that first one on 3rd and 22, as soon as that happened, I almost felt like that was so damaging to the rest of the game.
Yeah, you can almost feel the air being sucked out of Lincoln Financial Field when he failed to come up with that football. John Hightower has to come up with that football. There's no there's no two ways about it. He needs to look the football in. You kind of saw his eyes drift away from it. You have to look the football in, complete the catch. You got open, which is the hard part, but you gotta. The ball was.
He always seems to get open, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's the hard part about it. A lot of rookie receivers struggle from a route running standpoint and understanding, their depth and the different nuances, the subtleties that come with, the route running, learning the route trees and things. But he has that sharp football intellect and that route running acumen. It's just completing the second part of that, which is catching the football, the ball tracking part of it. Those are all things that are coachable, and then Aaron Moorhead will have to work with him on. But there's potential there. Remember, he was a day 3 pick. He's ideally would be in a perfect scenario. He wouldn't be playing more than 10 to 12 snaps a game. But here we are. He's out there. He's playing 40 to 50 snaps a game. He's kind of developing along the way, but he's a 5th-round pick. The expectations need to be tempered. Granted, when the ball is in the air and you have a chance to catch it, you have to come up with that. But he has shown signs of having traits that can be molded.
Let's look at some of the problems this team has moving forward here. Jack Driscoll hurt, most likely will not play. It does not look like Lane Johnson is going to play on Thursday night either. So what does the offensive line configuration look like after this game?
Yeah, well, you take Jack Driscoll out of the equation, and Brett Toth played 17 snaps, the kid from Army who they had last preseason, and they waived him, and the Cardinals had him for the entirety of last season, and now he's back. That was his first NFL game, and Carson was very aware that he was out there. You could tell by the way that, by his mannerisms when he was out on the field. He knew exactly where Brett Toth was, and he was a turnstile out there. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was his first NFL snaps. That's what they have to work with right now. Prince Tegawanagu is out there on the practice squad. He would be an option to be possibly elevated this week. Jamon Brown was a train wreck at right guard. He was responsible for a lot of the failed blocking assignments there. I thought that they should have maybe looked at Sua Opeta, inserting him there. It's kind of dire straits right now. They don't have a ton of options right now, and they only have it's such a quick turnaround that the in-house you're going to have to go with one of the in-house options.
Yeah, Brown was abysmal. There's no way he could get back on that field.
Real quick, it sounded to me today that Pederson insinuated that Opeta, in other words, that Herbig can move to right guard. Does that mean Opeta is stronger at left guard, and that's why? Because I don't know why. It seemed weird that he would throw Herbig in the right guard mix. So is that insinuating that Opeta is better at left guard and that you could see Opeta play left guard, Herbig play right guard, and then maybe Matt Pryor at right tackle or Tote at right tackle? I don't know what they're going to do at right tackle, but is Opeta more suited to play left guard?
Yeah, he played left guard at Weber State, so that's going to be his most comfortable spot. He's someone that can play right or left guard. He's a sharp player, very incredibly strong. He actually, I think he had 35 reps or 37 reps, something crazy like that, at the NFL Combine in 2019, which led all offensive linemen. He's incredibly strong. And he's a sharp-minded guy. I know a lot of teams were interested in him after the draft. But he's someone that I would have inserted today, probably around halftime once you saw that Jamon Brown was kind of just a turnstile out there and really was the primary, offender of a lot of the botched offensive sequences were due to his, lapses as a blocker. So I probably would move on from Jamon Brown and have him get one of the younger guys and throw them in there and see what they can do.
What do you think about Jordan Mailata? I mean, he's just so intriguing because of everything with Andre Dillard. You drafted him, and looks like Jordan Mailata is playing. There's definitely flaws, don't get me wrong, but in terms of expectations for a guy who's never played football before, he's definitely holding his own. What was your thoughts on this specific game?
Yeah, you have to like what you've seen from Jordan Mailata. Talk about someone who hasn't played American football prior to the 2018 preseason. You have to like what he's done. He played two tough powerhouses the past 2 weeks and really held his own. I thought he was, along with Jason Kelsey, I thought that Jordan Mailata was the strongest on the offensive line yesterday.
Talk with Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash. A couple other things injury-wise. This injury news just came out from the Eagles. Zach Ertz, he is not going to play. Miles Sanders is also not going to play. It seems that you're going to get Deshaun Jackson back out there, and there are some reports that Dallas Goedert could be ready to go. But losing Ertz and losing Sanders, what do they do in that situation?
Well, when you look at Miles Sanders, and he's probably going to be on the shelf for a couple weeks if I read the report correctly. You have Boston Scott, you have Corey Clement, and you have Jason Huntley, who they, of course, acquired off waivers from the Detroit Lions prior to the start of the season, but he hasn't really factored in on offense at all. He's touted as a kick returner, has a little bit of explosive ability. Maybe you'll see him a little bit. The options aren't very enticing, to be honest. Boston Scott is not the player that the Eagles saw in this last December, the player that kind of helped ignite that offense at the end of last season. He really has struggled to make an impact on offense. He hasn't even gotten a lot of opportunities, but when he has gotten his opportunities, he doesn't have the same burst, the same vision, that one-cut runner that is able to make things happen. They haven't used him in the passing game. They've really just went to Miles. They haven't used Corey Clement at all as well, and I think that has a lot to do with what they've seen or haven't seen from them when they have been given their opportunities. That's what they have right now. Perhaps you might see, I don't know, an Adrian Killens, maybe an Elijah Holyfield get called up. I mean, like I said, the options are very limited, and it's such a quick turnaround that these are the weapons that they're going to have. That's what the backfield is going to look like on Thursday. As far as Zach Ertz goes, that's something that obviously that's a month-long injury that he's going to have. Having Dallas Goedert coming back certainly softens the blow there. They do have Richard Rodgers, who's a veteran. He made a couple catches yesterday. He's a good blocker. And then Jason Kroom, he was in for one snap yesterday and had one touchdown. He's another veteran that's played in the NFL for a little while. So you do have a little bit of options there. I'd be more concerned at the running back position.
I'm not saying play this individual specifically at running back, but just based off of the lack of weapons, does that mean we might see more of this Jalen Hurts package?
Well, the one thing that I wrote about after the game is you got to see the Ravens, who are such an aggressive, and they always have that attack mindset. They looked a little tentative when they saw Jalen Hurts out there because there's not a lot of tape out there. And when you have an athlete like that, they can do he can do some RPO stuff. He can do some zone read from the quarterback position. He can play. He's shown that he can catch the football. All of a sudden, teams are, they have to account for a player like that. They're on their heels. I don't know that you necessarily use him as a running back, but I do think that there has to be a place where you can bring him on there for a half dozen snaps a game to really add another layer to the offense. Obviously, it's an absence of explosive playmakers, so you have to find the Eagles. It would behoove the Eagles to find a role for Jalen Hurts, because even if you're not going to use him, even if he's out there as a decoy, he keeps the defense guessing. It keeps them on their toes.
Yeah, I want to, and I think that the next interesting conundrum that comes up is what happens. You're going to get D-Jack back. Let's say Rieger comes back, Alshon's back, Ertz, Goddard, they're all back. What does that mean for Fulgham's role? Because, again, yesterday he has 10 targets, 75 yards. He's averaging over 11 targets per game, over 110 yards per game in his 2 starts. So is there going to be a big enough role how do you incorporate all these guys back if and when everybody's healthy?
Well, Deshaun and Alshon shouldn't impact Fulgham's role at all. The NFL is a results-based business. Fulgham's been out there. He's been producing. The other guys have been on the shelf for quite some time. You play the guys that deserve to be out there. Those are the guys that should get the significant portion of the snap allocations, and that's the way that I view that. Those other guys need to earn their snaps. They need to earn their way back onto the field. These guys have been out there. And they kind of delivered. Carson seems to have a little bit of a rapport now with some of these younger players, and he seems to play better for some reason with a lot of these younger players. There's no ego there. They're trying to make an impact in the NFL. It brings some energy and some juice to the offense. And I think those other guys, they're really going to have to earn their roles all over again.
I'm very interested to see what ends up happening in that stuff, because I agree with you. I think Fulgham has earned more playing time when this offense is healthy. He has earned the opportunity to have a role in this offense. I'm just interested to see who ends up not having a role. I mean, whether that's Alshon.
If I had to guess, I would say maybe a Quez Watkins. He he hasn't really done. He's been active the past couple of weeks, but they haven't trotted him out there and thrown him the football or anything like that. There's not a lot of tape on there on him. Not sure that he would be scooped up off the waiver wire like maybe a J.J. Arcega-Whiteside would, just based on his second-round pedigree.
You mean in terms of finding a roster spot? I'm talking more about having a role on the offense. Like
maybe it's John Hightower.
Who gets well? That's the problem. Like
probably
I see Hightower losing his when Jeffrey is Fulgham running Jeffrey's plays right now, and then when Jeffrey's back, does Jeffrey just automatically get those snaps back, and Jackson gets his role back, and you're saying, okay, what's the role for Fulgham because he's not a slot guy, right?
No, I mean he can move around. He did move around a little bit yesterday, but ideally he's going to be that X receiver. Doug Peterson's a smart guy. You see the formula that's working. You have a couple of these veterans that you have. It doesn't matter how much money you have invested in these two veterans that have been. They've been, let's face it, they've been sidelined more than they've been on the field over the past couple of seasons. Let the players that have really been producing for the football team that are rising to the occasion and helping your quarterback. Those are the guys that deserve to be out there on Sunday, and that's ultimately what I think will happen.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because Jackson's supposed to be back this week. That was the report, and it sounds like Goddard could possibly play. So you have Jackson on one side, Fulgham on the other. I guess Ward stays in the slot there. And I'm interested to see what happens when Rieger's back. Where does he end up going? And obviously, does Ward kind of lose his role in the offense? And then when Ertz and Goddard are back, that means there's a lot of 12 personnel. That's typically means only 2 wide receivers are on the field. So, look, that's a good problem to have, all these different weapons out there. I'd love to see it. Let me ask you this. You said Wentz seems to thrive with some of these younger guys. Then he's going to have to reincorporate all these other guys back into the offense. Is that going to cause Wentz some regression?
I think that that you try to maybe overcorrect some things, and you try to force some of these guys into the offense. And and a lot of times you got to see that last season when you feel like, okay, Alshon's out there, okay, Deshaun's out there. Let me chuck it deep. Let me get him. Let me try and get Alshon his catches, his targets. But you have these younger guys where they just want to go out there. They want to go out there and they want to make plays, and they want to entrench themselves into a roster spot. They want to prove that they belong in the NFL, and they're going out there and they're giving 110%. They're not taking plays off. There's no egos involved, and they're rallying around Carson Wentz. A lot of these guys look up to Carson Wentz and they want to make plays for him, and they want to stick around for a while. And I think that sometimes when you incorporate some of these veterans in there, if you're Carson, you feel like you almost have to give these guys their targets. And I don't necessarily think that those guys deserve those targets over the ones that have been out there producing.
Is it weird, though, that Carson Wentz seems to thrive when it's backyard football? Like, when it seems structured and when it seems like it's supposed to be normal, that's when he doesn't play his best football. And then when it's like, Carson, just do whatever. That's when he's rolling out to the right, throwing off of his back foot. Fulgham goes and gets it. I don't know how to view that. Is that a positive? Is that a negative? It just seems odd that the best time for Carson Wentz is when it's all scramble mode and just do whatever you want to do compared to like a structured offense.
Yeah, I think he's able to let his instincts kind of take over. There's not a lot. He's not pressing as much. He's able to play free, let's sling it and let these young guys make plays. I think the energy that a lot of these younger players have kind of, radiates throughout the entire offense, and people rally around that. And that's a real thing. And that galvanizes teams. And I think Carson's a guy that really thrives on that. And like I said, there's not that pressure there, feeling like, okay, I gotta get Djax, I gotta give him 6 targets. I gotta chuck it deep to him, or what's he gonna say to me in the huddle, or I gotta give Alshon his red zone looks, or something like that. These guys, he just spreads it around with these young guys and lets them make plays.
What'd you think of the 2-point conversion? A lot of people, really being critical of that decision. Did you have a problem with the 2-point conversion? Going for it early, the one early in the game.
The early one, yeah. I had a problem with both of them, but the early one, that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. The other one, late in the game, with the game hanging in the balance, I thought that Doug should have called a timeout, which he admitted today that he probably, looking back, he would have, but that was poorly executed. But the one in the beginning really just put them behind the 8 ball.
The last 2-point conversion play, is that Is there a missed assignment there? Why was that play blown up so quickly?
Well, it looked like Boston Scott thought he was getting the football and he didn't want to let it go. Carson looked like he wanted to pull it out. Either way, there wasn't much that was going to happen on that. I thought they would have been better suited getting Carson on the move and let him, target Travis Fulgham. That seemed to be a winning recipe as of late. They seem to have a connection there. Throw it up there and let Travis Fulgham make a play. You weren't going to get anything on that play regardless. It wasn't very well blocked up. The offensive line wasn't blocking much of anything for the entire game. It was just it was something that I anticipated a timeout and something far more creative than what we saw.
Yeah, Doug pretty much admitted today that it was a mistake. And then when we talk about the Cincinnati game, punting the ball, he came out the next Monday and said, probably wasn't his best decision. And then we talk about the Nate Gary play against Claypool, and he came out and spoke about that as well. And it just seems like, I was okay with Doug waking up Monday morning after the punt going, I made a mistake. You don't need to be a robot and defend everything and think everything was the right move. But at 1-4-1, when I look back at 3 scenarios on a Monday where Doug Pederson is questioning himself, that's where I think, hold on a second, this is kind of a big deal. I mean, you're 1-4-1, and 3 times you need to question your decision. That's why we pay you the big bucks, to make that decision on the sideline when there's time left on the clock. And I don't know, how concerning is that?
Yeah, I'm sure if Doug were to evaluate himself, he would say that he hasn't done the best. He hasn't given the Eagles the best version of Doug Pederson, so to speak. I think that there's been, like you said, you listed a few different plays. I think that you could even look to a few other ones that he would like to have back. Now, he's going to have to, he can keep saying that every Monday, but you got to get that corrected, because the outcomes could have been a lot different had a couple of those things went differently. So you have to make the necessary adjustments.
Yeah, he did say today and admit, hey, yeah, we are 1-4-1 because that's how we're playing, like a 1-4-1 team. That injury list continues to grow. Did not participate Driscoll, Ertz, Malik Jackson, Lane Johnson, Miles Sanders, Kevon Wallace, and Marcus Epps was limited, with Deshaun Jackson, Alshon Jeffrey, Avonte Maddox, and Duke Riley. So there's your injury report for today. And, of course, they got to bounce right back on Thursday night. We'll have plenty more tomorrow. Jim Schwartz will talk. We'll have Andrew's thoughts on that. Jeff Mosher Wednesday. Adam Kaplan on Thursday. Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Thanks, Andrew.
Yep, take care.
He's back tomorrow with more as the Eagles getting ready, turning the page already. They did not practice today. The injury report today was an estimation of if they did practice.
Okay.
So all those guys. But in that, Jack Driscoll does not look like he's going to play. Zach Ertz is not playing for at least 3 to 4 weeks. The reports are he's out about a month. Malik Jackson, I hear, is a 2-week injury. Same with Driscoll. Lane Johnson, I have not got an update on. Miles Sanders, they're saying 1 to 2 weeks.
How about Malik Jackson?
That one, they said him and Driscoll, 2 weeks.
Okay.